Hallo, guten Abend, herzlich willkommen zum Weinkreis, live im Weinkreis. Heute das erste Mal aus der Weinhandlung Kreis mit Kilian und Bernd. Ja, die ersten sind schon eingeloggt. Wir warten jetzt noch einen kleinen Moment und erzählen euch vielleicht, worum es geht. Wunderbar, herzlich willkommen, schon ganz viele mit dabei. Kili, vielleicht erzählst du schon mal ein bisschen was über unser Konzept.
Ja, klar, kann ich machen. Am Anfang würde ich nur gerne fragen, ob der Sound okay ist. Ihr könnt ja mal einen Daumen hoch geben, wenn ihr alles gut hört. Und genau, wir starten heute mit unserem Weinkreis live. Das ist eine Live-Verkostung, die wir ab jetzt jeden Dienstag 20 Uhr hier auf Instagram veranstalten. Heute geht es um den Branco von Antonío Madeira. Es wird jede Woche ein spannender Wein vorgestellt, den man vielleicht jetzt nicht auf dem Schirm hat. Und genau.
Ja, ja genau. Ja, also das ist also unser allererstes Mal jetzt. Deswegen ist es ganz super, wenn ihr uns dann auch unterstützt, einfach mal mit Kommentaren, Anregungen, was man besser machen kann, was anders gemacht werden muss. Heute sind wir technisch noch ein bisschen eingeschränkt mit dem Sound. Das nächste Mal wird es besser. Wir haben eine Anregung schon bekommen, dass doch gerne auch eine Empfehlung gegeben wird, was kann man dazu oder danach essen. Wir versprechen euch, das nächste Mal kommt die, aber wenn ihr vielleicht eine Dose Sardine rumfahren habt, heute Abend wäre cool, ja. Also es kommen immer mehr live, das ist wunderbar, wir warten noch einen kleinen Moment. Die gute Nachricht ist, der Antonío Madeira wird nachher auch noch mit dazukommen. Da müssen wir dann mal auf Englisch umswitchen, weil sonst versteht uns Antonio nicht. Das wäre dann etwas unhöflich. Falls es welche gibt, die nochmal zwischendurch eine kurze Übersetzung brauchen, dann einfach kurz melden. Ne? Ansonsten, ihr wisst ja, die Weine zum Mitprobieren haben wir auf unserer Webseite veröffentlicht. So könnt ihr die dann auch bestellen oder bei uns in den Läden kaufen. Und ab jetzt immer jeden Dienstagabend 20 Uhr sind wir dabei.
Genau. Einen Link zu dem jeweiligen Wein gibt es immer bei uns auf der Instagram-Seite, auf dem Profil. Und aktuell alle Weine, die bis jetzt schon geplant sind, als Banner oben bei uns auf der Homepage.
Ja, und vielleicht noch ein bisschen zum Konzept. Also wir haben gemeint, dass wir mal zumindest am Anfang die Live im Weinkreis immer gemeinsam machen, weil es ist vielleicht ganz interessant, einmal hier den alten Bock und einmal den Jungspund nebenan zu haben, die natürlich auch durchaus mal einen Wein unterschiedlich sehen können. Und der Kilian macht ja jetzt gerade sein WSET Level 4. Genau. Das heißt, er hat eine ganz andere Degustationsmethode als ich. Sieht vielleicht die Weine ganz anders und man hat mir vorher gesagt, ich muss dann auch damit leben, wenn mal jetzt eine andere Meinung aufkommt und ich gucke mal, ob ich so tolerant sein kann.
Okay.
Ja, also super, schon ganz viele da. Super, super. Ja, ich glaube, wir können so langsam anfangen, Kilian, oder?
Ja, genau.
Also, ja.
Soll ich was sagen, oder?
Du fängst an.
Okay, also wie gesagt, geht es heute um den Branco von Antonío Madeira. Da sind wir in Portugal, im Douro-Gebiet. Das ist so 100 Kilometer ungefähr von Porto entfernt, Richtung Südosten. Das liegt relativ zentral in Portugal. Das ist eine super schöne Landschaft. Man ist hier, ich glaube, das steht auf der Flasche, in der Region Serra de Estrela. Das ist das höchste Gebirge in Portugal. Bis knapp 2000 Meter geht es hoch, glaube ich. Und das ist alles aus Granit. Und dementsprechend sehen auch die Weinberge granitig aus. Es ist entweder große Felsblocks oder Brocken oder schön feiner Sand, wo wir dann manchmal ganz neidisch werden, weil der Sand, der ist viel, viel leichter zu bearbeiten im Weinberg als ein schwerer Lehmboden. Genau.
Ja, genau. Also wenn man unseren Weinberg hier in Stuttgart-Degerloch sieht mit dem Lehm, Also wird man immer neidisch, wenn man danach beim Antonio einen Weinberg hacken darf, weil da kannst du quasi mit dem Löffel durchgehen. So fein ist das. Ne?
Ja, genau.
Aber es ist auch eine sehr skurrile Landschaft. Diese riesen Granitblöcke, die da überall rumliegen. Da haben die Leute teilweise Gebäude reingehauen. Also das ist ganz wunderbar. Ja, also hier steht schon, los geht's. Die Leute wollen hier Action sehen. Ich schenke mal ein. Branco. Und dann wollen wir gleich mal den Antonio dazu holen, aber vielleicht mal die ersten Eindrücke.
Also nach dem WSET-Schema würde ich jetzt sagen, der Wein ist klar. Mittleres Goldgelb vielleicht. Der ist ein bisschen reduktiv, stört jetzt aber nicht und das verfliegt auch mit der Zeit. Schön würzig, man hat Salbei, vielleicht ein bisschen Zimt in der Nase. Willst du auch was sagen?
Ich höre mal zu.
Okay. So langsam kommen ein bisschen reife exotische Früchte raus, vielleicht sowas wie Ananas. Du hast schon ein bisschen Vorsprung, hast den Wein jetzt schon im Mund.
Ja, Antonio ist online, wunderbar. Ja. Ja, also, ja, warum habe ich den schon im Mund? Weil der unheimlich animierend ist, der Wein. Ne? Ja. Also, ich halte mich eigentlich persönlich gar nicht mehr so lange an diesen Aromen auf. Ich orientiere mich mehr an so einer Schule, die es im Burgund gibt mit dem Verkosten. Da geht es ein bisschen mehr um die Strukturen, es geht ein bisschen mehr um den Geschmack, auch so um die, ja, wenn vorhanden, Energie des Weins, also was passiert, wenn ich den Wein probiere. Außerdem habe ich jetzt einfach mal durchgehabt. Ne? So. Und was mir auffällt, und das ist so ein Link bei vielen Weinen vom Antonio, ist, dass es sofort absolut burgundisch riecht. Ne? Und man sagt auch, das Dao ist das Burgund Portugals. Es hängt einfach mit diesem Klima zusammen und auch wenn ihr mal die Roten von Antonio probiert, die haben unglaublich viel Finesse. Aber ich glaube, wir werden jetzt mal den Antonio dazu holen. Ich hoffe, dass das gleich klappt. Ja, da ist er schon. Moment. Ja, er war schon da. Antonio, da ist er.
Es bleibt spannend.
Ja. Jetzt ist er angeklickt. Gucken, ob er gleich da ist. Ja. Und mit dem Antonio sprechen wir eigentlich immer Französisch, weil der Antonio hat natürlich schon auch eine spannende Geschichte. Da ist er. Hola, Antonio.
Hello, hello, Kilian. Hello, Bern. Hello, everybody.
Antonio, I think we switched to English. No French today. I was beginning to talk about you. It's great that you're there. And actually, you were supposed to be in Stuttgart these days because that's the time where we usually have our big wine fair, the Perspektive Wein, which has been cancelled this year. So I was saying that usually we talk French. Can you explain why?
Because I'm French-Portuguese descent, and because Bern speak very well French.
Thank you. I wanted to hear this, but the first thing was much more important. Antonio grew up and had all his education in France. Actually, I think you're an engineer, aren't you?
Yes, I was born in Paris and I grew in Paris, and I became engineer and studied and I became engineer, and I was working during 15 years in Paris and France on engineering, on supply chain management, and I changed my way of life, becoming vigneron some years ago. And now I'm 100% dedicated to wine and making wine in Portugal, in the village of where I have my family roots, in the village of my grandparents.
Yes.
on the foothills of the Serra de Estrela mountain in the down, in the region called down.
Yes, yes. I think a speciality of your domain is that you have lots of vineyard parcels. And can you tell us about how you created the domain and how you assembled the parcels?
Yes. Well, at the beginning, I didn't add any vineyard. I didn't add a cellar. I just had ideas. I realized that on the village of my grandparents and on the village around, everybody in the past used to cultivate vines. The old people used to cultivate the vines to make the wine they drink at home. So everybody used to have a small vine, I would say 20% of an hectare, half an hectare at the maximum. Mainly old vines with a field blend of very old grape varieties, autochthonous grapes. A field blend of more or less 20-30 different grapes together, white and red. And I realized that this legacy was disappearing very quickly because the younger generations have left the countryside to get jobs elsewhere, and so the vineyards were abandoned more and more. So I proposed to old people, because they reach to an age they don't have the health to go on cultivating by themselves. So I proposed to them to rent me their vines when they don't have the health to go on. So they're happy because the vine doesn't disappear, because they love that. They don't want to see that disappearing. And also they receive a rent. So and for me it's also a win-win deal, because therefore I can cultivate. I can have grapes cultivated on the way I like, so to make the style of wines I like. So I cultivate on biodynamics, and I try to have a very intense life on the soils, but allow me, therefore, to have healthy grapes that I vinify with the indigenous yeasts, with the wild yeasts in the cellar, to try to express the closer possible the aromas of the landscape on the glass.
Yes, yeah, thank you. And I remember visiting your vineyards. Sometimes the plots are very, very tiny, just very small.
Yes.
Small parcels, and all the varietals are mixed there, aren't they? So you have red, white, all intermixed.
Like yes, red and white, everything mixed in the vines. In the past, the people used to make very clear wines, harvesting the reds and the white together. So we can have a plant that is red, on the side white, on the side red, etc. So they did that, I think, because it's allowed the wine to be ready on the next spring sooner. Because they made the wine to drink it on the next year, on the next spring. Yes. Personally, I made the harvest. I've made also an experiment on making wine like that, but mainly I make white and red separated. So I harvest separately the red and the whites. These whites you are drinking are all the grapes from the different parcels I cultivate. So nowadays I cultivate more or less 20 different small vines spread into 7 villages. In total, we are speaking about 7-8 hectares in total. Mm-hmm. So small pieces of puzzles, but I try to. In fact, what I did is that in each village, I try to be inspired by the work that the monks on Burgundy have done. So trying to classify the different parcels, the different sites, locations in each village in terms of quality to make wine. Yes. So basing it mainly on visiting the sites, the feelings I have in there, the soils, looking to the soils, the diversity of the granites, the expositions, the plants, the health of the plants, but also learning, speaking with the old people, because they knew forever what are the best places in each village. The old people in the past, for instance, the people used to prune together. So imagine we are neighbors. Today we are pruning together my vine. Tomorrow I will go to your vine to help you to prune your vine, and so on. So the people were together and used to drink together the wines of each other. So they knew that this place was very good, this one not so good, etc. So they knew that they have a knowledge about the quality of the wines of each place. So listening to the old people, we can learn a lot about that, and so we can identify the best place. So it's what I have done the last 10 years, and trying to cultivate those that I think is very special.
Yes, so you keep always a very good relationship to the elderly people. We know that, we've seen you with all the people around, and they're really very happy to have you there. And
yes.
Yeah, there was just a question about, well, the size of the domain. You answered that. It's auf Deutsch so zwischen 7 und 8 Hektar, and I think it's about 30 parcels, isn't it?
It is last year it was 25 parcels.
Also 25 Parzellen ungefähr auf diesen 7 bis 8 Hektar. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe I give a little some tasting comments as well, and then let's speak Kilian. Yeah. Yeah, I have to do that in English. And I already said it smells a little bit like a wine from Burgundy. Of course, there are no Chardonnay aromas, but there's a lot of minerality. Well, there's this little reduction. That's why we use these large glasses, and we strongly recommend to pour this wine into a decanter, to decant the wine a little bit beforehand. On the palate, it's this little astringency, you know, this little mineral bitterness, and you have lots of minerality throughout the taste, and this very fresh acidity, but very ripe acidity. So would you say, is this very typical for your wines, or is this very typical for DAO or for Serra de Estrela?
Yes, I think well, it's a mix between the typicity of the Serra de Estrela and the methods I use that come from Burgundy. I try to apply the Burgundian method of vinifying in the terroir of the Down. The terroir of the Down, I think, if you want to define it very quickly and very simply, we will talk about natural acidity that give freshness and ability to age to the wines. So we have, and after that, so what I do is that I try to reproduce in that terroir the methods of vinifying of the Burgundy. So, for instance, making the malolactics, making long aging. This wine age 2 years before bottling. First year apart in big barrels and apart in stainless steel. Second year to get everything blended together in stainless. So, in fact, I vinify very differently from most of the people in Portugal. Because most of the people don't make the malolactic and don't make so long aging, and also I work with the indigenous yeasts and very small doses of sulfite. So, in order to have the real expression of the yeasts, so the real expression of the aromas of the landscape. So I think it's truly a down but quite different from most of the wines that are made nowadays in the region, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know what to say because basically I think you two said a lot already. And well, I think it's a wine that is due to the light astringency and the nice acidity. It has a lot of drink flow, so it's hard to not empty the bottle in one evening. That I like a lot.
Evening.
Or maybe 1 hour.
Yes, that's more the time.
So if I don't know if any sommeliers are watching, that's a good wine to sell in your restaurant because you can sell a lot. And
Yes.
well, it's I wanted to ask about the winemaking methods, but you don't do much in that cellar, so I don't know if you can tell us much about it. So you don't much sulfur, you don't clarify, you don't.
Well, I work the more naturally possible, but very closely to the wine. So our work is to let the grapes make the wine. So we work a lot. We try to work a lot in the vines to create the conditions that allows the wine to make to made it by itself in the cellar.
Yes.
To sum up it. What we do is basically making the wine naturally and with the methods of we find in Burgundy. So working with the indigenous yeast, we press the wine. So when the grapes arrive, so we pick up it, we make the harvest manually in the vines in small cases. We bring it to the cellar. We put it in the press. We make a short maceration of more or less 3 hours in the press. We do that not to get tannins or something like that, but more to get azote, to get nitrogen. That is the food of the yeast.
Yes.
So making that small maceration, we get nitrogen. That is the food. So it allows the yeast to go to the end of the fermentation, having food to work till the end. So to have something very dry. So after that, we press. We put it in a stainless steel. We let it decanting 24 hours. After that, we rack it. So the decantation is made naturally without adding anything, without enzymes and so on, because we want to keep the most possible good things in the vine.
Yes.
And then we rack it to barrels and to other stainless vats, and it will ferment by itself with the indigenous yeast. And after that, it makes also the malolactics. And fermentation sometimes are very long. We have some barrels that ferment till the summer, the following summer. So we have to follow it very closely to be sure that there is no any kind of problems and so on. So and after that, in the summer before the next harvest, we rack it to a stainless steel to blend all the barrels together, all the wine together, and it will stay there 1 more year, 1 more winter on the stainless before bottling. So this second winter is very important for me because it will help the wine clarifying just with the force of the gravity, so we don't filter the wine before bottling. We keep everything because we don't want to have wine clear that have lost something in the mouth. We want it to keep everything to stimulate the pupils in the mouth. I used to say we want a wine in white and red We want wines that stimulate the pupils, that make your pupils cry. It's what I look for. And it's like you speak about drinking very quickly the bottle. I have a friend of mine in Paris. His definition of a great wine is a bottle that is empty in 15 minutes, which is his definition of a great wine. And basically, it's what we try to do. It's wines that when you put it in the mouth, you enjoy it a lot. And we want one more glass, we want to pair it with food. You want to have saltiness. And it's why we work in that way in the cellar, to not lose anything in the mouth, to keep everything, to stimulate, and to want one more glass.
There was a question and comment. One comment was that this tastes like a little bit like a Meursault with a great terroir. I totally agree, but it's really funny because the soils are so different, and there's nothing to do. The soils are different, the climate is different, and the grape varietals, we have roughly 20 grape varietals here, but there's no Chardonnay, of course. And there was this question, have you been inspired by certain wine growers, by certain vignerons in Burgundy or in other places?
Yes, of course. I have a lot of there is a lot of vignerons that inspire me in several regions. In Burgundy, I have a friend of mine that used to be during 10 years the right hand of Anne-Claude Leflèvre at Puny-Montrachet when she was alive. His name is Antoine Le Petit. And my friend Antoine was a good advisor when I started to make white. I used to bring him my first bottles, and he gave me some advices. For instance, he was responsible for making me starting to make the wines with the malolactic done, you know. Yeah. So because in Portugal, as I told, everybody blocks the malolactic, so he helps me to free my mind from that way of making and starting to make the malolactics. Probably it explains also the profile of the wine that remains maybe Meursault or Burgundian terroirs because of that way of vinifying. I think malolactics helps to the wine to go from a varietal profile to a terroir-driven profile. Yes. So it's why I do that. And I think, fortunately, in Portugal we have some terroirs because people in Portugal block the malolactic because they fear to lack acidity, so to lack freshness, because they think, okay, we are in the south of Europe, so it's a warm country. If you make the malolactic, you will lack freshness. Yeah. But in fact, I think in the down and in some regions on the Atlantic side of Portugal, like Lisbon, like Bairrada, like Vinho Verde, we have enough acidity on the natural acidity to allow us the luxury of making the malolactics. Yeah,
there is another question from Marion. What made you change from engineering to winemaking?
So, it's a very long process. Basically, it was the desire of being happy, of making each day an activity that I enjoy, because engineering was stimulating in terms of it was interesting, but it was not for me a passion, you know. And I made that more because of the salary of the money than because of the content of the job. And one day, when I become a wine lover, I become more and more obsessed by the wine. So I realized that wine was becoming a passion, And by chance, I realized that the region where I used to go since I was a child on the summer on holidays, the region of my grandparents used to be the great region in the past of Portugal for wine. So,
Yes.
and that it was in a very advanced process of abandonment of the region was forgotten. It's like imagine you are in the Burgundy on the 60s, 70s, and the region is a little bit forgotten. And I saw there an opportunity to make something, a daily activity that will make me happy. Basically, it was the desire of being happy each day when you wake up in the morning, to be happy of getting out of the bed and go to work. It was because of that I changed.
Yes, but yes, it's really a challenge because you experience some really hardship, like hailstorms, like frost, like the wildfires. I remember,
Yeah.
I think it was 3 years ago,
Yes.
when you were at Perspective Wine and you really were desperate because there was a wildfire going on the time, and there was your wife and your children, and you didn't have any contact with them. You didn't know what was happening. So this was very hard, and you had really hard times as well.
Yes, the last years were very hard for different reasons. It's very difficult to live from the wine to become vigneron overall when you start from zero. And also nowadays we have more and more events that you cannot do anything that are linked to the climate change. We really feel the effects of the climate change when you work in the field, when you work on agriculture. And last years have been more and more difficult. For instance, this year I had frost that make me on the end of March, that make me to lose 1/3 of my production this year. So and this is linked to the climate change because the plants wake up very soon because we have a winter that was more a spring than a winter.
Yes.
January, February were very warm,
High quality.
and so the plants in mid-March wake up more or less 1 month earlier than usual, you know.
Yeah.
So after that we have frost and big consequences on your production, and each year we have a different climate event that is extreme and that turn it more and more difficult to live from the vines and from agriculture in general.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks. So you've seen it's a very high quality wine. It's already the bottle is empty, and I see we're not the only ones who have an empty bottle now. So that's a really good sign. Coming back, I think maybe we shouldn't take or fix a time, but maybe next time we say we broadcast as long as the bottle is empty. So if we have wines that are not so good, well, which doesn't happen with us, but it could. So the broadcasting would be very long. But tonight it's going to be quite short. But I want to come back to the Meursault and Anne-Claude Leflaive topic, because I really see a very strong link here in this wine to Meursault and Claude Leflaive, because it reminds me a lot to the Meursaults of Pierre Moret, who was the regisseur from Anne-Claude Leflaive for a very long time, and still makes, to my taste, one of the most exciting Meursault wines, which are so lively, which are so fresh, and they have this aging ability, which is really incredible. And in fact, I see many qualities of this wine that I see in Pierre's wines, which is a great compliment, actually.
Yes, it's true. I was thinking that because Pierre Moret is one of the great guys I respect a lot, and his wines are so amazing. So thank you for the compliment. I'm not sure I deserve it, but thank you very much.
Well, we should open them also now. But that's another time. So, Kilian, any more questions or comments?
Yes. What would you have to eat if you could choose now?
So, sorry?
What food would you have with this wine?
Well, I think it's maybe it's quite versatile.
Mhm.
I could link it or to white meat, or to a fish from the sea. I like to, for instance, codfish, of course, in Portugal, but in general, fish from the sea. I think the combination of the pairing will very good because of the salinity of the wine. I think we will have the iodic side, the salinity of the fish that will be revealed, and I think it can match very well due to the iodic side of both of wine and the fish from the sea.
That's a really
I
good
agree.
point. It's a really good point because there was a comment that somebody from the restaurant trade who said, okay, but we don't sell too many Portuguese wines in the restaurant trade. It's so it's so complicated, but I don't think it's complicated because we see that here in our shop, Portuguese wines see a tremendous success. And even people who don't know those wines, they taste them, and they're so different, and there's such a multitude of wines, so that almost everybody likes them. And being a sommelier, I must say that especially the structure of these wines, and especially this mineral bitterness, is a very, very good link to many dishes. Yes, it's Patricia Chalumeau. Of course, she's Burgundian. She would drink it with a poulet de Bresse. I think drink anything with a poulet de Bresse. But poulet de Bresse would be fine with me as well, as long as if there's enough truffles to go. But coming back to this bitterness, and bitterness is bitter is a very, very important taste. And you have, of course, this unpleasant bitterness. We're not speaking of this. We are speaking of this mineral bitterness, and which links the wine very good to sauces, but it links the wine much better to like crayfish, to dishes which have a certain bite. You know, as I'm thinking of scampi, gambas, crayfish, lobster. Why not langoustine? And of course, yes, white meat. That's the same thing. You know, these proteins and the bitterness, they go very, very well together. So that would be a nice thing. But I also think that you might enjoy this wine with a very good cheese, like something like a really good Emmental, or very good cheese from the Allgäu, and of course fantastic Comté, like 36 48 months, for example.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we should proceed to table now.
There was one question from the chat. They asked,
Yes.
what was your first vintage, and maybe also what was the first vintage of the Dao Branco?
The first on the white, it was 13 vintage.
13?
13.
Okay. And the first vintage you made in Dow?
The first vintage I made, it was in 2010.
Okay.
And the first white I made, it was 13.
Okay, great.
At the beginning, I made only reds. And after I started to make also white.
And you started in your garage, right?
Yes. Well, I started. It last. I made there eight harvest from the garage.
Really, it's maybe everybody here who's online, they really can't imagine how your garage was, because it was really a garage. And when tasting, it was so stuffed with barriques, barrels, and stuff. So to get the samples, Antonio he had to climb over the barriques all over the place. It was really mountaineering to get you some samples. And then we were in the middle of tasting, and it was pouring down, and there was this guy who wanted to deliver the bottles. Do you remember that?
Yes. Under the rain.
4 people, because well, we had to go down the ramp with this big pallet of bottles, and we've already seen this crashing into the garage. Everything went fine. I think thanks to the wine as well. And yeah, and thank you very much, Antonio. I think
Thank you, Ben.
we're coming to the end of the bottle.
Yes.
And well, we confirm it's a good bottle. We love it. I hope everybody else as well. And
now the second one.
yes. Well, we're 2 people. And
it's a good rate.
yes, I think so. Yeah, we're good. We're good at drinking wine. That's the only thing we can do. And now we're going to talk about wine. So, Antonio, thank you very much. Muito obrigado. And hope you have a pleasant evening. I think we started already not too bad.
That's okay.
And anybody else who wants to maybe review this broadcast, we will have it on Instagram. We'll have it on our new how's it called? The thing YouTube channel. Yes. You see, I'm very old school. And so we're building up this as well. So you can repeat this very nice experience with Antonio anytime you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye. Ciao. Terminé. Hop.
Attends, il faut que je l'enregistre.
Oui.
Oui.
Attends.